Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be teaching how to paint a watercolor landscape of Canyonlands National Park in Utah. This is going to be a landscape of their iconic arch, and I cannot wait to paint this painting with you. Without further ado, let's get painting. For today's watercolor painting, I'm going to be using Prussian Blue, Purple, Venetian Red, Burnt Umber, Black, Yellow, and Veridian Green. My paper I've taped down is a size 5x7, and then I'm going to be using a size 8 brush and a size 4 brush, or a size 2 brush instead of a size 4 brush will do just fine. And for the stars for the painting, I'm going to be using an opaque white paint, and I've got white gouache on hand by Winsor Newton. To start, I want to lightly sketch the arch with a little bit of burnt umber, and I'm going to be going about halfway, almost halfway up the painting here, just about, and I am just going to do a very subtle kind of almost rainbow curve, but it's going to first swoop slightly up just like so, and then go down just a little bit, and then start to slightly curve upward again. So we've got kind of just this swooping motion upward, going down a little bit, and then just a couple curves towards the right. Now I want to sketch out kind of about an inch or so below the top of this line. And I'm just gonna do kind of a swooping, just subtle curve, and then it's going to go slightly upward here, and then it's going to angle downward just slightly. Now off towards the left, I'm going to elongate this line a bit, and then it's going to have kind of like a divot here towards the left. And then from here, I'm going to just do some kind of irregular texture with the rock formations here, starting with a very subtle C curve, just like so. And then I'm going to do another C curve, but it's going to kind of angle more inward. Then from here, I'm going to do just a couple kind of almost just wave-like brush strokes. And then it's going to swoop again upward, and then just connect to the edge of the right side of the page. So this is just a very loose sketch. Take your time with this step, but this is our loose sketch of the arch here. And then from here, I just kind of want to subtly kind of build some detail here, just about ½ an inch up from this bottom line of the arch. I'm gonna do just about a ½ inch line all the way across here, because that's going to be kind of our highlight point of the arch. And then from here, I want to just loosely sketch just a few kind of almost swooping rounded horizontal lines off towards the left here to connect these rock formations over to the left. And then from here, I'm going to do just a couple outlines of some rocks here. Don't want to go too overboard, but I'm just going to do just a few structural lines to outline some crevices of our rocks. So this is again super loose. And for right now, I'm just going to let these parts of the painting dry, all of the lines. And once they are dried, we're going to move on to our watercolor galaxy. To first get started on our galaxy, I am going to take a little bit of plain yellow, and I'm going to apply the yellow just about halfway in this kind of open area below the arch. And then I'm just going to fill this area with yellow. And then I'm going to take just a little bit of Venetian Red, and that's just going to add a little bit of some subtle orange into the start of kind of this almost sunset galaxy. All the sky above here is going to be galaxy, but we have just the hint of a beautiful sunset. And I'm leaving a little bit of yellow just as is right here because that's going to mimic exactly where the sun is. Okay, and I'm just going to let this part just kind of bleed and dry and do its thing. Now I'm going to fully saturate my page up here with water. You can use like a sponge brush if you have one on hand, or a larger brush, or you can just saturate it with your other just normal brush. This is a 5x7 page we're working with, so it's not super large. Okay, so I've just gotten this saturated. The first color we're going to work with is going to be Veridian Green, this bottom color here. And it's a really nice, vibrant, almost green turquoisey color. Okay, so I'm going to start with some Veridian Green. And I'm applying it about almost 2 inches above this arch here. Okay, and then from here, I'm just going to take a very small hint of yellow, and I'm going to apply the yellow just at the top, or the top of the arch, but kind of bottom of the galaxy. Okay, now I'm just going to layer some more Veridian, and I'm going to kind of start to add a few streaks of it using kind of this kind of zigzaggy organic motion going upward. I'll do another streak here. Okay. So now I want to start to just build the depth of my galaxy. So I'm going to go to the next darkest color in my palette, which would be Prussian Blue. And I'm just going to kind of layer some Prussian Blue in our sky here. And I'm really using the belly of my brush to really help the transition in between different colors as they kind of bleed and overlap. So you could see here, I'm doing this like swooping motion with lots of pressure with my brush. So really utilizing this side angle just to kind of buff and smooth out some of those transitions. And then now I'm gonna do another streak of Prussian Blue off to the right. Maybe a little bit more just below that as well. Then I'm going to take a little bit of Prussian Blue, and in this highlight area here, I've kind of got this funnel forming, which is kind of mimicking our Milky Way, and I'm just going to add a few dots just by tapping in that area. And then I'm going to take a little bit of paper towel, and I'm just going to lightly blot it just a tad bit. We're going to slowly build that kind of area more, but I just want to buff that out just a hair bit. And now I'm going to use some purple, and I want to just layer some purple on top of our Prussian blue, and you can just see how much the contrast is starting to build as we work with our darker colors now. So I'm going to layer that on top of each Prussian blue area. I'm not letting it fully take over the galaxy, but just a nice, beautiful contrast of color, and it really layers nicely with the Prussian blue. Okay, so now what I would like to do is take some Payne's Gray, actually not Payne's Gray, black. So now I'm going to take some black, and I want to again build the contrast even more. So I'm just adding a few touches of black and just overlapping. Letting it bleed out. And if certain areas of your galaxy are not moving, meaning kind of blending out softly, but you have harsh lines, that just means that you need more water on your galaxy. So you can just even fully resaturate with some water and lift some highlights using the paper towel, or you can just add water directly in those areas. So this is a really good example right here. I kind of want to buff this out, so I'm just using a really wet brush and just using pressure to kind of blend it out. And next, I kind of want to revisit some Prussian blue here. And again, I'm just slowly building the galaxy to add more depth and dimension to it. So playing around with the purple, the Prussian blue, the black, and then if needed, even some more of that light, beautiful Veridian Green. Just add a few pops of that again so it doesn't get lost. I'm now going to kind of rebuild this Milky Way a little bit. And I'm just tapping with the tip of my brush. And I'm just gonna take a dry brush now. I'm just tapping my brush on my paper towel now. And I'm just gonna use the side of my brush just to lift irregularly some of the paint in this Milky Way. We still want to highlight here. So you can either use a paper towel or a drier brush to kind of lift some of the paint. Okay, so from here, I want to continue to build the contrast in this Milky Way a little bit more. So I'm just adding a few deeper, darker colors with the tip of my brush. Maybe I'm going to add some more purple and black in the sky just to continue to build that contrast. All right, I'm just gonna let the galaxy dry before we move on to painting our arch. All right, so the edges of where my arch is going to meet the galaxy are dry now. I'll just let the rest of the sky continue to dry as I paint our arch. So to start out, I am going to be working with black, burnt umber, and Venetian red for this arch. But the first color I want to use is going to be some burnt umber. And I'm just gonna get a nice base coat of burnt umber. And I am just going to apply this just above where I have marked a highlight, which is just this line area right there. But I'm just gonna apply the burnt umber all the way to the very top of the arch sketch that we did earlier. And while this arch is still wet, I'm just gonna take some black and mix it with some burnt umber just to tone down the black just a hair bit. And I'm going to start to just add some really good depth of shading with our combo of the burnt umber and black. And it may seem really intense at first, but I'm just gonna use my brush to buff it out right along that edge. And that's just gonna make our burnt umber have way more contrast and depth and more of a shadow because it is a night galaxy just above. So we know that this is not going to be a super bright red rock kind of desert colored arch because of the way that the lighting is happening with the galaxy. Okay, I'm just gonna layer some more plain burnt umber now, just to make sure we have just a few pops of that. And then I'm going to take my brush and kind of outline using that black brown color. I'm just gonna outline the edges of our rock. Okay, and then I'm going to add just a little bit of texture over here. Alrighty, and then just below, I want to add some Venetian red, and I'm going to add it into this area here that we left white. That's just going to give the contrast a nice pop of color to the arch. And to make that pop even more, I'm going to lift, using a slightly dry brush, some of the pigment here. I'm just gonna lift it slightly. And then I'm gonna take just a touch of yellow and add just a few touches of yellow as a nice pop because of the way that the lighting is happening with the sunset below. Whoops, I'll smooth that out. Okay, so I'm now gonna take just a little bit more Venetian red and just re-outline the top here of this little area. Okay. So next, I want to saturate this area here with a wash of burnt umber. Okay, now using some Venetian Red, I'm gonna add just a few pops of that beautiful kind of brick red, especially towards the inner area here, just in this kind of U shape. Okay, so next I'm going to take some of that combo of burnt umber and black that we mixed, and I'm going to start on this left side here, where I'm just going to kind of outline some of this rock formation. And then I'm just going to use that color, again, kind of doing this almost left to right texture and motion with my brush. All right, now I'm gonna kind of angle this area of the rocks a little bit differently. Basically just softly outlining the sketch lines, again using some wet and wet technique, just allowing that kind of texture to slowly bleed. I'm now going to take some plain burnt umber and add just a few pops of just the plain burnt umber, kind of tapping the belly of my brush out, really wanting to have some just organic, irregular texture here. All right, now I'm just going to relayer some of that black brown into just a few more areas again, just building all that shading and dimension. So this area is not super crisp in detail, but it's just kind of irregular. It's not quite in focus. We're really focusing just above there, the sunset, the arch throughout the galaxy, but we just want some texture and irregularity in this desert floor here. Okay, so now I want to kind of add some more detail to my arch here. So I'm going to just gently kind of outline in kind of a jagged line with some texture. Just this kind of Venetian red highlight in yellow that we did earlier, and just upwards of the arch here. Just doing a very jagged, irregular line. And then from here, I just want to do a few subtle kind of streaks, almost just horizontal like we did just now, but I'm just doing that same thing slightly above the arch, adding some kind of shaded, detailed crevices in the rock face. Okay, so I'm now gonna let this area just set and dry, and when we come back, we're gonna do just a few bits of minor detail just below the sun here, and then we will finish off the galaxy with adding some stars. Now that our arch is dry, we can start to fill in this blank white space here, and I'm going to take a little bit of purple to start. I'm just going to do a really light watered down purple. So not as dark or saturated as we did with the galaxy, but just a nice wash. And I'm just going to apply this all the way across here, just being mindful of the border. Alrighty, and while it's still a little bit wet, I'm going to take some Venetian Red, just a hint of it, and I'm just going to apply it just down below where the sun is. From here, I'm going to take some Prussian Blue, and I just want to apply some Prussian Blue on the ends here. And on top of that, I'm gonna just layer a little bit more purple. And this time I'm gonna apply the purple in some kind of streak kind of motions, like just horizontal, left to right. And I'm even gonna layer some on top of some of that Venetian Red. Okay, and then from here, I'm just gonna mix a little bit of purple with a touch of Prussian Blue. And I'm gonna outline a mountain in the distance here. So I'm just gonna start with just a horizontal dash line. Then I'm gonna slope it downward, bring it back up, just basically an irregular kind of desert mountain silhouette here. And then I'm just gonna fill that in with the dark blend of Prussian Blue and purple. And then I'm just gonna take my brush and just lightly buff out that transition between the mountain and the desert canyon below. And then from here, I just want to add just some shading and depth using that same blue purple. And I'm just going to add just some curvature right here. Maybe there's kind of a mountain, not a mountain because this is a desert, but just some kind of irregular rock textures down below in the canyon. Okay, so from here, the last step that I want to do is add our stars, and I'm just going to use a small brush. You can use either like a size 4 or a size 2 brush with really light pressure. Using the tip of my brush here, I'm going to use some plain white gouache, but any kind of opaque white paint will do just fine. There we go. So I'm using some Winsor & Newton white gouache here. And I am just going to apply some stars throughout the sky using the tip of my brush and very light pressure. Just gonna test it out on the side. There we go. So I'm just gonna do really light pressure, and the trick here is to apply these stars very irregularly. You do not want them perfectly evenly spaced, like perfect polka dots, but you want some just irregularly placed dainty dots using light pressure with your hand, and just take your time. And if you would like to do a little cute shooting star, I would pick a dark area so that way there's nice contrast with the shooting star. And I'm just going to apply the shooting star right over here where it's slightly dark. And I'm just going to do really light pressure with my hand and do a crooked dash line. Looks like I need some more water on my brush to make that paint glide. So I just did a little bit more water on my brush. And there we have it for shooting star. I'm just gonna wrap up doing the rest of my stars, and then our painting will be completed. And here's our completed watercolor landscape of Canyonlands National Park. I hope that you enjoyed this watercolor tutorial. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel so you don't miss any further landscape tutorials.